For the integral of x times the sine cubed of x dx, as is often the case, we need to combine old information with new information. In this case, the old information is that of integration by parts. And when we use integration by parts, if we have a polynomial factor, we usually identify that as u. So I'm going to let u equal x, and then dv will equal the sine cubed of x dx. Since u is x, du is equal to dx, and folks, that's the only easy part of this exercise, I think. We're going to have to buckle in. dv is sine cubed of x dx. We need to anti-differentiate that in order to get v. I'm not ready to write down v equals though. What I'd like for you to do is pause the video and come up with what v is if dv is the sine cubed of x dx. Since in sine cubed of x dx we have an odd power for the sine function, I will separate it to sine squared of x times the sine of x dx. Replace the sine squared of x using a Pythagorean identity and end up with the quantity of 1 minus the cosine squared of x times the sine of x dx. We recognize that if u is equal to the cosine of x, du is negative sine of x dx. And I should say I'm using a metaphorical u. We've already used u in this problem, so I'm not using u again. It's just thinking about the substitution. Multiplying and dividing by -1 will have the effect of reversing the terms that we used when we substituted using the Pythagorean identity. So we now have the quantity of cosine squared of x minus 1 times negative sine of x dx. Recognizing that we have basically a u du situation here, we're going to integrate using the power rule. And v is then equal to 1/3 times the cosine cubed of x minus the cosine of x. All of that, folks, was so that we could apply the integration by parts formula. uv is going to be 1/3 x times the cosine cubed of x minus x times the cosine of x. All of that is minus the integral of v du. So minus the integral of 1/3 cosine cubed of x minus the cosine of x dx. I'll go ahead and integrate part of this integrand. We have a negative out front of it. We have a minus in front of cosine of x. Let's see what we have now. 1/3 x times the cosine cubed of x minus x times the cosine of x. That came from uv from the previous step. A negative times a negative cosine of x when we integrate becomes a plus sine of x. And then we still have a minus 1/3 times the integral of the cosine cubed of x dx. I would now like for you to pause the video and integrate the cosine cubed of x dx, thereby finishing the problem. I've expressed the cosine cubed of x as the cosine squared of x times the cosine of x. And then the cosine squared of x I've expressed using the Pythagorean identity, 1 minus sine squared of x. Letting u be the sine of x, we have du in cosine of x dx. So we end up with 1/3 x times the cosine cubed of x minus x times the cosine of x plus the sine of x. All of that from the previous work that we had done. Then when we integrate negative 1/3 times the cosine of x dx, we get negative 1/3 sine of x. And then integrating sine squared of x cosine of x, we use the power rule. The 1/3 in front of the integral combines with the 1/3 from the power rule. We end up with plus 1/9 sine cubed of x plus c. We see that we have a sine of x minus a 1/3 sine of x. And so our final answer is 1/3 of x times the cosine cubed of x minus x times the cosine of x plus 2/3 times the sine of x plus 1/9 times the sine cubed of x plus c.